Hello and welcome to Supercharged episode 187. I'm Adam Dotches.
And I'm Tommy Hunton.
And we are joined today by Ben Wander, who you may remember from making a video game called A Case of Distrust, which is now out. And so we wanted to have you back on like we promised.
Yes.
So hi Ben, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Well, better before we spent an hour and 15 minutes trying to get the stuff working today, but that is not your fault.
Yeah, thankfully, I didn't have to do anything. I was watching movie trailers and video game previews while you guys were ripping your hairs out.
Yeah.
Well, I have no hair left to rip out on my head, except for eyebrows, maybe.
You're just pulling...
My eyelashes are coming out, yeah.
Right.
I'm alive, but we just did press. I was telling you a fun story off air about our press for Stash House, so we're open too, but that doesn't sound as stressful as launching a video game.
Yeah, you have a couple of stories I know about some. How much can you say? Because I remember that some of it is you don't want to rip on some of the problems a little too much. But what can you tell us about the difficulties of launching?
Yeah, it was all my inexperience in the launch issues. So I launched A Case of Distrust on Thursday, and for the first 2 days, people were saying, "Oh, I love this game. It's so great. It's so wonderful." And 2 days later or something, someone tweets to me and says, "Hey, the game hasn't been working on Mac for me." And I went to the discussion forums, and there's 30 comments on there saying the same thing. And
would it just not load at all, or what was the issue?
The issue was, so the way I guess that Steam works on its back end is you upload a PC package and a Mac package or something, and I had done that for the pre-release version, but not for the release version. And having never released on Steam in my life before, I used to work at EA and we used Origin, but even then I wasn't even close to the release team that actually pushed the release button. That was really terrifying, that for the first 2.5 days, the 30 people who bought it on Mac or something, which thankfully it is a really low number of people that actually wanted to play on Mac, but I felt bad because I have a Mac and I like playing on Mac, and so that felt really terrible. Thankfully, those fans were really very understanding. So I don't know if it had been the opposite. I don't know if it hadn't worked on PC for 2 days, if it would have been quite the same. But nobody returned it, which was great. They just said, "Oh, whenever you get a chance to look at it, just take your time." Everyone was super supportive, so that was really good.
You missed the deadline for the pitchfork and torch meeting.
I feel like on the Mac, though, if you're gaming on a Mac, you're probably used to problems.
Yeah,
exactly. That's fair.
Because I feel like I would react that way, but it might be because that's just generally when it comes to a game, it's not like mission critical stuff. I enjoy games, but if I can't play it because of some technical issue on the computer for a day, I'm usually not gonna care. I guess it's interesting because yours is called A Case of Distrust, and then someone buys it and trusts that they're gonna get a game, and then they get nothing, and they're like, maybe this is part of the game.
Yeah, they're like, maybe this is it, guys. This is it.
Meta, dude.
So meta. So for people with bad memories or who don't listen to all episodes, can you please tell us, what is A Case of Distrust about?
Sure. Yeah, it's a narrative mystery game that takes place in 1924 San Francisco, where you play private investigator Phyllis Malone, and she's trying to solve a case of deceit and deception. And so it kind of plays half like a point-and-click adventure game where you're searching for clues and evidence in locations, and half like a choose-your-own narrative story where you're asking people questions and contradicting them with other people's statements or with what you found in the world to try to get at the bottom of this entire mystery.
So I've completed it. Adam has
Great, awesome.
You've played it, right?
Yeah, no, I've played it. I haven't gotten as far as Tommy, unfortunately.
And then, so I have questions. I don't want to go into too far to spoiler territory, but we can speak in some vagaries.
I can handle spoilers. However, the audience probably shouldn't have it spoiled. I feel like a lot of the times if there's a good story, spoiling it shouldn't. There's something for the first time that's nice or whatever, but if it's a really good story, you can hear it, read it, watch it, whatever, listen to it again, whatever the case may be.
Whatever the case may be.
Oh.
So, I feel like there should be like a guitar riff after that or something.
Yeah, exactly. Did you just put on sunglasses right now?
I should have brought my glasses in.
Oh, we have so many pairs around here, but none of them are reachable.
We need a soundboard, just the Who. Yeah, to cue anytime. So I enjoyed it. I got to play the demo at E3, which is basically kind of like opening like first like 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, the showcase demo is maybe 10 minutes if you want to go really, really slow and click on everything and spend a while reading, but it's pretty short, yeah.
And so, yeah, what struck me, it's a lot of reading, but I like that. It reminded me a lot of the Choose Your Own Adventure, but also the kind of the more interactive novels. Because but I liked there were a lot of nice polishes that I think were very subtle but really well done.
Yeah, it's not like reading one of those stories where, the what are the anime ones called?
The romance dating sims?
Yeah, those sorts of things. It's not like that. Like, I feel like when I think interactive novel, I think of something that was made in Tyranno Builder.
Yeah.
But it's but it's very like it's very unique and animated and it's not the kind of, I mean, because of the point and click parts and the way things just flow. I mean, I guess if you watch the trailer, which we'll have in the video version playing over what we're saying right now, perhaps, or earlier on when this gets edited, when you see that, you can see the style of it is quite different than, it's not your average, it's not like an interactive novel in the, I guess, traditional sense. It's weird thinking of that as a traditional, anything interactive novel-wise being traditional.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite unique.
So yeah, what really struck me were the visuals, the rotoscoping and stuff you did really captures a mood, especially with each character. But also the music was incredibly evocative. I usually play games with either a podcast or other music going, but the score for this I felt especially compelled to keep listening because it sets the mood and the tone so well. And yeah, just a lot of even the subtle design choice that reminded me a lot of LA Noire was when you basically successfully sniff out a clue and use it to contradict someone, you get a nice, like, very satisfying kind of audio riff. So the design choices I thought were really subtle. So yeah, walk us through, when we last talked to you, you were knee-deep in development and getting closer to like a finished product. But when we last talked to you, you were finishing up. But let's finish up going forward now to, you are almost done with the game. What is that process of finishing up, getting everything kind of like those subtle design choices finished and being satisfied with them?
So I was talking to a friend of mine who's also making a video game, and his game will be out at the end of this month. And we last saw each other in October and realized that the next time we were going to see each other would be GDC, which is in like a month. It's a game developers conference. And we said to each other, hey, the next time that we see each other, our games will be done. And you know, we had a good moment, we hugged it out and then left and said bye. And I talked to him 2 days ago or something over Skype. And I said, and he congratulated me on being done the game, and I congratulated him because his game is just going through certification now, and so he's not really working on it. And we both talked for a while and understood that neither of us knew how we got there or how to do it again. Mm-hmm. Like, between October and now, I have kind of no memory of what happened or what I had to do or, you know, what really happened. It just sort of fell into place in this haze of overwork and being overtired and just needing to put something out. It was fun. It was stressful. It was creative. I mean, there were some problems that, you know, needed creative solutions. Like, the game wouldn't run on really old computers, even though it's not that intense graphically of a game. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted it to run on pretty much anything that you could have. So a lot of making my earlier code more efficient, which was really hard to do, but I think worth it at the end of the day. So yeah, different things like that.
That's similar to how my dating life works.
It's interesting because I think we kind of talked about this earlier in the week actually, but the being in a haze for the whole development part. I was just going through code today. I was wrapping up a puzzle for the project I'm working on, which I won't get into, but you guys know about.
That was really cool, by the way. We talked about that a couple days ago, and I'm really keen to know what happens with that. That's really neat stuff.
Well, thank you. I actually will. I think I'm going to have part of it up online pretty soon. That's what I wanted to show you today. Yes. Actually, it still is in the testing phase, but I connected its voice today, and I bring this up because I was going through the code for the voice synthesis and audio mixing part that was really the hardest part for me. because there just wasn't any like audio mixing API out there that I just didn't want to do it. And so I had to mess with Sox. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but it's a command line audio mixer thing. And I had to kind of mess with it in a way that it doesn't normally like to be messed with.
Command line audio mixer is the most terrifying four words that you could say to me. I don't know. I never want to deal with that.
That's the thing is I was like, okay, so if I was doing this in Ruby, I actually learned Ruby to try to make like a microservice for it, and it just would not happen. And so I wrote one in PHP that runs locally, and it's actually a lot easier to use now. And I don't know if it's something that would be valuable to anybody else, so I'll throw it out there at some point if it is. But it makes Socks a lot easier to use. But I was going through the code, and I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing all this stuff that I wrote, and I definitely wrote it, and I'm like, I don't even know what this means. I like this is above my level. I don't know where I figured this out. I'm sitting here looking at this, and I'm like, how did I do this? I mean, there's just so much stuff in there that I just have no idea. And I remember writing it, and I remember the whole process, and I didn't like it. It wasn't my usual like copy, paste, and manipulate thing. Like I wrote the code from scratch, but I don't understand it.
I've done something similar.
It's so rare for me that I don't remember something like that.
I'm the same way, where I did something similar when I was at Disney. I had to write something code-wise for a website we were working on, and we had to figure out something really complicated to handle all this traffic. So I'm looking through this code like a year later. I'm like, God, this is decently written, but who wrote this? And I realized, oh, this was me. Yeah, and I don't remember writing it. I'm like, I don't know how the hell I did this.
Yeah, you get into the zone or something.
Yeah. It's like a creative, like the creative flow haze.
Yeah.
So Ben, you got in the haze, and so interesting with the whole process of being in that final state. Obviously, you can't change anything major. It's basically going to be problem solving and seeing everything to the finish. Yeah. Do you attribute the ability that you got a functional game released to planning ahead, or how do you think the process works in terms of, you've obviously been in the games industry for a while, but do you think planning obviously helped you get to the point where you were?
Yeah, I mean, planning helped a lot. Also knowing when to stop. I feel a lot of first-time developers have their schedule planned until the last few weeks of development and then say, oh, well, we'll give ourselves a month buffer to finish the game. I had intended to finish the game mostly in August. It ended up being pushed where I finished most of the game in October. And then from October kind of until the middle of January, when I first sent the game to reviewers, it was just bug fixing, story edits, making sure people understood things, but there was no new content in the game. I think maybe it was the last week of October, something like that. But there were a few months there where I didn't add anything in it. And I think that's really important and goes to show how, I mean, look, I don't want to jinx it right now, but I haven't seen a bug reported with the game, even though I know there's a couple in there. They're really hard to get. And I think a lot of that has to do with my training, before jumping out on my own and understanding, okay, when is it good to say, to tell yourself, I need to stop putting things in this. I can't, there's no perfect piece of art, and you're going to keep wanting to go at it over and over and over again until you refine it to be this smooth little ball. And you just have to know when to tell yourself to step away, and this is done now, and I just need to get it to the finish line.
With that being said, would you ever go back and make revisions now the game is done and you can focus, or is it kind of you just let it sail away and it is what it is?
No, for sure. If somebody finds bugs, I'll go back and fix them, especially if they're easy bugs. There was one text bug that I think you found where I used the wrong peaked.
Yeah.
And you pointed that out to me. I gave you a copy of the game early, I think. So you pointed that out to me before it released. But it had worked so well for everybody that I'd sent it to. Like nobody crashed. There were very few bugs. Nobody found anything. That I left it in because I was too terrified to push another build. So that's still in there. But so for the next patch, that's going to be fixed. There's a really minor bug with the way nobody would notice it if I didn't tell you, but with the way one of the transitions works, it's actually the wrong color slightly. It's there's no black in my game, and this transition has black in it, and it should be this off black that I use everywhere. So little things like that bug me. but probably won't introduce any new bugs in the game. You know, if I just change a word of text or if I change a color,
the ripple effect that you're afraid of, creating 10 new ones.
Exactly. So there are. Okay, I will tell you a bug that's in the game that hasn't come up yet. So if you do this right now in the game, it will break, and that's if you click on someone who you can talk to. So there's these scenes in the game, and you can click on people, and when you click on a person, it pops up a little description and then a little talk link below. And if you hit talk, you can talk to them. If you click on a person that has one of those talk links, and then you click on another object that doesn't have a talk link, and then you click back on the person really quickly, I mean, before the text even has a chance to move, you will break the game and not be able to talk to anybody until you restart.
So you basically become a mute, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. You have to figure it out without being able to say anything to anyone. Right.
That makes some sense. That I feel like I've run into that situation before when I was doing like Flash games, and you or even there's this one banner ad. I probably shouldn't talk about this in public, but that this banner ad I made for Safeway, which was one of the most convoluted things ever. I mean, it was
it like punch the monkey and win?
No, it was like an entire coupon database and shopping list creator in a tiny little square.
Good God!
I mean, it wasn't a bad thing. It was just bizarre that they wanted this in a banner ad. I mean, it's like the banner ad was almost a megabyte. It made calls constant. I mean, you could do crazy stuff with this tiny little banner. I mean, it expanded so there was some more room to see the coupons or whatever. But It's just like Safeway is like, I don't want to risk them leaving the site or it taking too long to load. They're going to do this all in the coupon.
Jeez.
So I built this whole thing. I made a video about how ridiculous it was, and it's private. But I put it up on Vimeo because I didn't want to offend them since they were a client of my employer. But it was. It was just super weird. But I remember with that and with a bunch of other things in Flash, a lot of the times if you would click around too much, the event listener would just not be fast enough to keep up. And I wonder if that's just something. It's hard to. I don't know how the languages all work. I'm just thinking in terms of, Flash was ECMA based. I've seen this in JavaScript and Unity, which, Ben, you wrote this in Unity, right?
Yeah, it's in C#, which is, you can choose to write in Unity script, which is basically JavaScript, or write it in C#. And so this is in C#.
So I guess maybe it's just like a universal thing then, because I was thinking, okay, well, I didn't know Unity did JavaScript. I'm sorry, you said Unity script is like JavaScript. I've heard it compared to ActionScript 2 a little bit, which I, for the life of me, can't understand why they would use 2 over 3 as a model if they did. But either way, they're both ECMA based, so it's like I'm wondering, maybe it's just computers. Maybe I'm putting too much on the language.
I wish I could tell you it was that, because then it wouldn't be my fault. But actually, I know what the bug is, and in the process of fixing it, I introduced 2 more that were so this bug comes up, 0.01% of the time, because nobody was actually not trying to break the game is going to click that fast around things. It's just, that's not the pace of the game. Nobody who's playing it to enjoy themselves is going to do that. And so I fixed that bug and thought everything was okay. Pushed a new Steam build to reviewers, and for like 2 or 3 days while critics had this build to play and mess around with, there was a part of the game that was fully broken and you couldn't get past. That 95% of people would probably go through, but if you're going through quickly and you know what you're doing, you wouldn't get to that path. And so someone messaged me, and thankfully it was a friend who found it first because it was later in the game. And they said, "Hey, I can't get through this part. This text isn't showing up." And I looked at it, and I was at a bar doing some scheduling work with a beer and talking to a friend, and I saw that and literally threw my laptop in my bag and sprinted home as fast as I could to fix this thing. And it was fixed at like 11:35 p.m. or something.
Now, did you know instantly when you read it, you're like, oh shit, I know this, I know what this is?
No, because my friend was messing around with different save files. He was trying to break the game for me. And so I thought, oh, he did something that nobody else would. That's fine. Nobody's been reporting anything. It's okay. And just for the sake of it, I said, you know what, let me test it here locally where I know my game state is clean. There's nothing wrong with it. And I tested it, and it happened. And then I did it again, and it happened again. and then I sprinted home. And my fix for that was just reverting the change that I had pushed to fix the other bug. And that was the moment for me that I knew I don't want to touch this again unless something really major comes up. I need to be done with this, because at this point I'm introducing way more bugs than I'm actually fixing.
That's got to be a scary thing to kind of go through, is know how fragile that state is, especially with your being the only one in that code.
Yeah.
And that you're the one that can fix it. So yeah, no, I think that's a fair calculation you made.
Right. Yeah, I think so. But again, it comes back to that knowing when to stop and knowing when to finish, knowing when you're done polishing. It's different stages of that. And I guess I went one too far this time, but that's okay.
Did any of the reviewers notice the problem at any point?
No, so actually, I sent the review code out pretty early, and I think most reviewers wait until, especially because they knew it was a game that would take them about 4 hours or so. So I think they waited until closer to release. So thankfully, and it was before the first weekend they had a chance to play it. So it was like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I don't think anybody had gotten that far to that point where it had broken for them, thankfully. At least nobody told me, so who knows, maybe I got some really terrible scores on some website I haven't seen and it's all because the game's broken and they couldn't get through it. I don't know.
And they have to have a certain level of understanding that it's an early game, you're a single developer, it's not, you aren't behind the powers of EA or something, so they have to be forgiving and understandable. This has got to happen. And it sounds like you were also responsive too.
Yeah, and so there's this other problem where the game doesn't actually run on OS X Yosemite. And it has to do, and it's only the Steam version of the game. If you get it on Game Jolt or Itch or something, it works on Yosemite just fine. And it has to do with some way of signing the Steam bundle. And I'd be lying to you if I knew exactly what that was. But a reviewer did find that because she was running OS X Yosemite and it wasn't working for her, and I had no idea. And eventually we went back and forth enough that we realized that was the problem. And then I tested it with Mavericks, I tested it with El Capitan, I tested it with Sierra and High Sierra, and it totally works fine, but it's just on Yosemite that for some reason that Steam thing doesn't work. But credit to her, she was very understanding. I mean, we went back and forth so many times. I asked her, hey, we figured that's what it was. I asked her, hey, do you mind upgrading? She was totally fine with it. So yeah, I think people understand when you're reviewing an indie game that maybe there's a couple things around the edges that don't work, and they're kind enough to bring those up to you.
Especially with an older OS, and on top of it, the fact that it probably worked fine on the new one. So I imagine if there were like constant bugs and just would not work whatsoever, but the fact that, they talk about an obscure problem.
Yeah, it's interesting that that even happens with a framework, but I remember I made an app with Adobe Air for Android, and it worked all right for a little while, but it just had so many problems. I was like, oh, I can't do this again. That was a bad idea. Unity is obviously a much more reliable situation and a usable one, but I just like at that point I didn't really know how to do any serious programming. I wouldn't have been able to natively write the app because I didn't know Java. I still don't know Java. I feel like I probably could pick up Java pretty easily at this point, just given the other languages I know. But for some reason, the structure of it is always, I just find it odd. But it's just the frameworks just sometimes don't do what they're supposed to, and it's like isn't that the point of using the framework, that you don't have to worry about that? It's weird to me. But I'm curious. Speaking of reviewers, you obviously you make the game and then you want people to play it, and so one of the paths there is getting it out to reviews so that there will be some press about it. Has that mainly been what's drawn the game, and how do you set that stuff up, and how do you get the word out about the game and make sure people are actually able to find it and play it?
That's a really hard question that I wish I had the perfect answer to. And,
I don't think anyone knows the perfect answer.
Exactly, and the honest truth is the biggest problem with indie games now is about 30 or 40 games release on Steam, just on Steam per day. And so getting through all of the, getting noticed through all of that stuff is just extremely hard. And so it's a combination of staying active on Twitter, on Facebook all the time, writing a devlog so people can follow the development of the game, going to trade shows where I meet fun people like you and get on podcasts and things. It's a lot of small little things. And then right at the end, emailing a ton of people with press codes, hopefully knowing people who know people or something. I went with a publisher, which means different things to different people and in different situations. So the way that my publishing relationship works is almost like they're a launch PR team where I pay them a much lower percentage than typical publishers take, but typical publishers also fund the game and they didn't. So, but they're helping a lot with getting the word out. And so they know a bunch of reviewers and they sent it out. And kind of once it gets a little bit picked up, I've seen more traction with it. So there were a couple websites that ran reviews early on. And then once those did, bigger ones did, and then bigger ones did. And so it seemed to snowball that way. But this is very anecdotal. I have no idea if this works the same for everybody or if it's going to work the same for me for the next one. I really don't know.
So there will be a next one.
Oh, a next video game that I make? For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So this hasn't burned you out. You're not just like, I'm going to go be a cobbler in France.
No, I wish I had the ability to tear myself away from this, but I can't. It's a passion. It's, it sounds, I don't know. It sounds a little weird to say it, but it's something that I've known that I've wanted to do since I was 11. And that's why I left, my old AAA games jobs. That's why I first got into the industry. That's why I went to the specific college that I chose to go to get into games. That's why I chose to go to the high school I went to. I mean,
it's impressive that your path has been able to lead this and you haven't burned out and you're still enjoying it.
It's so much fun. I have so much. The greatest part is watching somebody play your game and they're having a good time. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if everybody else thinks the game is crap. It doesn't matter if,
it really does.
It doesn't matter if it's a game that came out that you made in a weekend with some friends. As soon as you see somebody have a good time with it, that just makes my heart smile. I don't know a better way to put it.
No, the same way. Like with Stash House, watching people, even members of the press, like go through and play the game, it's incredibly heartening just to have people enjoy something that you created, because there's something magical about taking people on a journey, whether it's in a physical space, in a game. It's making people feel smarter, connected, or enjoying themselves. There's something really magical about that. So I totally understand that feeling.
Yeah, when I had the playtest of my terrible broken generative game that I've been very vaguely talking about here and there. I was telling Ben that like some people got so frustrated that they left. It was a minority, but most people were confused.
Racist.
And I'm just racist against frustrated people, if that's a race, and that's okay with me. But but there's so many people that actually got it that it was like I couldn't even believe that it worked, and so it was especially weird because it was like watching. I don't know if it's like this for you guys or not, but I felt like I felt like it was my kid or something. Because
totally. I completely understand. It's your child that you're just letting out into the world and hoping that people like them.
Yeah, but it was so odd because I didn't know what was going to happen too. I mean, I guess that's the case with everything, but it was like I didn't even know exactly what the game was content wise because it had generated it itself for the most part. And I knew kind of what to expect, but I didn't know like the specifics of it. And it was so weird and interesting to watch people interact with it. And then I would like sometimes when people would have trouble, I told them in the beginning, this is going to be frustrating. It's going to be hard. It's going to take 30 minutes before you have any idea of what you're doing probably. So just please stick with it. And I'm sorry. And we're going to figure this out together, but I don't know what's in this thing. So you're going to have to help. And like try to figure it out because I don't know what's going on. But if I can answer a question, I'm going to go around and just try to see how everybody's doing. But so for like the first 45 minutes, maybe a little longer than that, I would answer questions. But then there was sometimes some people weren't sure how to solve their part of the puzzle. And I would go over there and be like, oh, what did it tell you? And I'd look at it and be like, oh, that's so interesting. Because I didn't know what to expect. And I'd be like, oh, you know what? I think you can solve the puzzle like this. Because I knew what the rules it spit out were. I recognized them when I saw them, so I could understand them quicker than everybody else. But I didn't know who was getting what and how it would piece them together. Because sometimes like it would combine it would have like different segments of a rule, and what they would get would depend on a lot of things, some of which were random. So it's like it's just so weird to watch something out in the wild, watch people doing it. I've never had that experience before, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're all just relating to the exact same thing here over and over again. But
no, but it speaks to something for creating anything like that. There's something really magical and interesting to watch. I felt the same way with Stash House. We first tested with our very first test group. We're like, we have no idea if this is going to work or not. And
such a weird feeling.
Yeah, and I think any creative who agonizes over their creation is hopefully. I think it helps motivate people. I think for me at least it does, because there's something about feeling like an amateur that's very special. Feeling like a smug, like I know what I'm doing, is the worst feeling.
Yeah,
it's an arrogance, and even if it's right, in its assumptions that you did do something good off the first draft. It's I like having the other approach, which is like, if this is going to fail, I'm being surprised when it doesn't.
Yeah. So it's interesting making a game. I mean, I feel like I'm farthest behind everybody in this regard, because Ben, I mean, you've obviously released a video game because that's what we're talking about. Tommy, you've had your games in the real world, and then like whatever it is that I'm doing here, is. It's funny because when you were saying that, like, you wanted to do it from when you were a kid, I feel like I had the same experience, but it wasn't. I remember watching those shows on Nickelodeon where they would put you in the video game.
Oh yeah,
and it just looked that way, but you were really just walking around on a background, or I don't know exactly how they did it, but it was. I was like, that's what I want to do. I like playing video games, but I wanted it to be real, and
right.
I look at what I'm doing now, like when you just said that how you knew you wanted to do that since you're 11. I was thinking about what I wanted, and how I've gone through so many different iterations of different mediums, and then now I'm at this place, and I had never known Obsession before a couple of years ago, and now I feel like I will ruin my life doing this if I have to, because I just need to do it. It's a compulsion. And it's it's such a weird format of the game, but it occurred to me while we were talking that it's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to make the rest of the world a video game. That's what I'm doing. Right. That's what this game is. It's supposed to just bring people in and make the game something that we can exist within, which is kind of a weird. I feel like no one is going to understand what I'm talking. I always feel like no one understands what I'm talking about, but especially now, since you guys kind of know what it is, but no one else knows what it is. And I'm not going to subject anyone to listening to that explanation. Ben, you know how long it took me to explain it to you. So I really need to find like a nice finite way to talk about what it is, but I'm hoping like getting the demos
that's a really
done.
hard part. So everybody thinks that that's really easy. There was I'm on a mailing list with a few different people, and somebody said got added to it and said, hey, this is the game that I'm making, and they had a 1-sentence pitch, and it was the perfect pitch. I'd never heard anything as good as that. It was amazing. And I replied immediately to them and said, holy cow, I wish I knew how to make 1-sentence pitches this good. And they replied back and said, thank you so much. That took me 3 years to refine and come up with.
That's
and so
brevity
it takes a while, for sure.
Brevity is, I think there's an Antoine Saint-Exupéry quote. He's the author of The Little Prince. That's something along the lines of, an artist has achieved perfection, not where there's nothing left to add, but nothing left to take away. And it's being able to boil something down to its pure essence that's really, really hard.
There's a, is it A River Runs Through It? There's a whole chapter on concision, on how the dad made the kids write the essay over and over and again, cutting it in half each time until it would lose its meaning and can't be. I always thought that was interesting, and I was like, that's something I'm going to do, and I never did it.
Yeah. But the thought experiment is there. Like it's being able to remove content and keep something still cogent. And that's the thing is, even like with the experiential stuff, like video games have been around for a long time. But the challenge of trying to translate or convert people into what is a real life game and trying to introduce stuff into the immersive space is really hard, because people, when you say like it's basically a real life video game, they're like, oh, that sounds intriguing, but I don't know what that means. Like, I'm not Mario jumping around and hitting blocks and jumping on Goombas, or I'm not really shooting people in like an FPS. Like, what is a real life game? So it's challenging even having to explain like I know, Adam, you know this, but the void, which is expanding out. We have one out here in LA now. We're going to have two.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, in
When did that
Anaheim.
happen?
It just opened in Anaheim last month.
Oh, I got to talk to them.
And then there's going to be one in Glendale.
I'm so happy that they're coming out here finally.
So, yeah,
I've wanted to go back into it again. I don't want to have to go to Utah.
Yeah, they're expanding pretty rapidly.
Utah was fine. It's just it was a harrowing experience. I talked about it on another episode. I'm not going to look up right now, but it was one of the worst travel days I've ever had, and they were very nice, and it was wonderful, and I just don't want to go through that experience again, though.
Yeah, Glendale or Anaheim will be much easier. But yeah, it's trying to explain those kind of pieces of entertainment to people. But
yeah, that's the hard part, is because I after kind of finishing a really big part that I've been working on for over a year, this one puzzle because the problem is this game has to write its own dialogue for the most part. I mean, it's not like fully, it's not like talking to a human being or anything, because that's a ways away. But it will write unique sentences and sometimes move around where the text goes and that sort of thing. So it sounds fairly unique each time. And we'll pick different words based on what it's talking about, and we'll respond to you. That part is still shaky, but it's having to get it to where it can generate language based on sentence fragments that I give it. Like I just give it this is about this is about that. You need to include the topic, a reference to the topic here. Like I give it kind of a outline of what it's supposed to say. And so it can do that. And that took a very, very long time to build because I don't have my own data set yet. And so I've been working on this for such a long time that it took this long to explain it. And now I forgot what the point was. But I think where I was headed with this was that ultimately there are so many different parts of this game and so many different things that I've had to figure out that I don't even know how to talk about it because there are all these different pieces. But pitches are really interesting to me because normally, I remember, yeah, I like after finishing this, I was like, I need to do something simple. And so I made I created a card game that I've wanted to do for a while, where I had to figure out the rules, and then I wrote down, okay, well, how would I pitch this? Because I think I'm just gonna do a Kickstarter for it because I need to get data on how Kickstarters work. So I figured, why not just do one and see what happens. And I made this card game, and I actually was like, okay, how would I pitch this? And then I wrote it down in like 3 sentences. And people are so, I think a lot of people have a hard time with a pitch because they look at it like this is a, like I had this friend Joanna who would write a movie script, and she wouldn't want to pitch it because she's like, I can't boil that down into 2 sentences. That's ridiculous. There's the beautiful part about this is all of it. And I understand that point of view because it's like if you were to take a person and say, who is this person? Well, they're nice and, they look okay. If you were to describe them in, brief terms like that, then, you're not getting any sense of who the person is. But I think that, like when you try to summarize an entire experience, there's a problem, but what's the best part of it? And I feel like that's what the pitch is, because when I was thinking about the card game, it's basically a DIY version of Magic the Gathering with pixel art. And
there you go. That's an amazing pitch right there.
Much easier to play.
That's
and
fantastic.
Was it? Thank you. But that's the thing is like, what do I like about this? And it's like, I like Magic the Gathering, but I spend half the game looking up rules, no matter how many games I play. And I like making games. Why not extend that to everybody else? So I've been making all these pixel stickers. I guess everyone's gonna find out about this now. Making all these pixel stickers or pixel art stickers, and I've played around with card game ideas. And so you basically assemble your characters and attacks and stuff, and there's a set of rules that you abide by so that there's structure to it. But technically, you could just do whatever you want. If you wanted to set your own rules, you could do that. It's just more of like sticker packs, card packs. You put them together the way you want to. You can follow the rules. You can break the rules as long as everyone's following one set of rules. Otherwise, how's the game going to work? But basically, you can have ownership over your content in that way. And if you have stickers that we don't make, then you can go grab a Rick and Morty sticker and throw it on there. If you want to have one of them as a character, or Rick's spittle as a attack or something like that. So I thought that that was really easy to understand for me because I'm like, I know why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I have this problem with Magic the Gathering. It's also sometimes a little too nerdy for me, and I wanted to make something that was more accessible. So that's always easy to. I find most things easy to pitch when I understand like what's the cool part, what's the best part of this to me, or what are the 3 best parts, and then you can kind of formulate it that way. So I think it's easy to talk about that, but then I think about this amorphous game, and I'm like, I don't even know what I would say is the best part of it.
I think that's where you got to collect data. You just try to distill what do people enjoy and then go work backwards.
Yeah, I think I need to figure out what I enjoy. I've talked about it, kind of like it will. I wanted to market it as like it's a religion, which, Ben, you told me. What was that documentary you mentioned? Because I feel like other people might want to watch that.
Oh, man, I totally forget. Yeah, there was a documentary that's on Netflix about what's called an ARG, or an alternate reality game.
Yeah,
which sounds like what I'm doing, it seems.
It sounds similar, yeah, exactly. They're typically... what you... I don't want to describe what you're doing, but it's slightly different than that. But yeah, it sounds similar. And yeah, they're basically like real world games. But this one was special because people didn't know if it was real or not, and they still kind of don't. And 95% of people think that, okay, obviously this thing was fake. Somebody set it up. This is just a game. And then there are these die-hard fans of the game who refuse to believe. I mean, this whole game is about conspiracies and cultists and all this stuff.
Is it
and
called
they all
the
think
Institute?
it's real. Yeah, it was the Jejune Institute.
So
like
I actually met the creator of that at the Immersive Design Summit. So ARGs and ARXs, as they're called, like alternate reality experiences, because some of them aren't games, are part of like the immersive community. And so LA has like 10 of them that are running concurrently. But yeah, Jejune kind of helped kick things off early on for like the physical ones. But yeah, ARGs, it's really intimidating. So the guy that basically created them, I'm friendly with, and he came to play Stash House, and it was terrifying.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, like, because he was...
He's like a luminary and considered one of the best game designers in the
because
world.
you were worried of what he would think.
Yes.
I hope he liked it.
He did, and...
I say this not to flatter you, it really is very good.
No, it's way too kind. But no, he did. Thankfully, he did, and he actually left his jacket, so when he's back in town, he's going to become picking it up, and we're going to be talking again. But, yeah.
That must have been exciting. It's like, ooh, God, another opportunity.
Is that like the reverse George Costanza trick? Did you take his jacket and hide it? So
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to make him come back. Mwahaha. Like, take that for your ARG, buddy. It's the take your coat ARG. Yeah, he actually helped create. So the first big one was the Beast, which was the one for AI, which was back, 2001? That kind of kicks the whole thing into gear. And it was incredibly interesting, like reading the history of that. And then seeing how I Love Bees and all the big things, including EA doing their own paid version called Majestic.
Right.
Which
we were talking about I Love Bees a couple days ago, and that was the Xbox one that I couldn't remember the name of.
For Halo 2, yeah. And I actually played that, and I actually met the creators of that. So it's kind of crazy.
Oh, nice.
Interacting with people that basically created an entire genre of gaming, and then how it's kind of spun off to, like, out here in LA, you have the biggest one is called like the Tension Experience, done by Darren Lynn Borsman, who is the director of some of the Saw movies, and his thing is huge. It's got a lot of funding and maybe even a lot more funding, and it's kind of growing from like this, interesting space. But so ARGs and ARXs are interesting. But yeah, Jejune, I met some of the creators at the summit I went to on immersive design in San Francisco last month, and it was fascinating hearing about them talk about their beginning and kind of the opening of how playing around with theater and storytelling and gaming can translate into real life and have this weird overlap.
I feel like I need to meet more people in this community because this is like, I feel like this is something I've been trying to find for myself. This is a very self-discovering. I'm discovering things about myself in this episode that I hadn't thought about. I'm like, oh, okay, finally, there's an actual community that maybe I belong to finally after all this time.
That's how I felt when I was stuck at Disney for 8 years in a job I hated miserably, and I was writing on the side, and I also wasn't a fan of the writing side of the film industry. And it wasn't until that I discovered like immersive theater, like Sleep No More, and then the escape room type games that it was like, holy shit, this is real. I'd always enjoyed this stuff as a kid, and I'd always made scavenger hunts and treasure hunts and stories for people, but it was weird because I always wanted this to be real. And then seeing it be real, and that this whole thing existed, was like, oh my God, this is like having a dream and realizing, oh no, it's real. This dream is real. And that's why I did this deep dive. And that's the community I felt like, this is what I'm part of. This is the world I want to be in.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird because my first experience with an escape room was mediocre, I would say. Like, I was impressed by it in some ways, and in other ways I didn't really enjoy myself, I guess. And it had more to do with the people that I was playing with. We got stuck with a group of like drunk people from an office. And so they were just, like, I basically couldn't do much without having to like yell over them. I got with the really rowdy ones because some of my other friends, they ended up in a different group, and like I like to split off a little bit usually to see, I feel like you can get kind of caught up, or you think too narrowly when you're with people you already know. I wanted to meet other people, and I don't know. Anyway, it didn't work out so well in this case, but. I came back feeling really inspired by it, but I never really went to another one. I just started thinking a lot about how it worked and how I could incorporate that into the stuff that I'm trying to do. And then, and Tommy, you and I had started talking shortly after that, and I think that's when I started heading down this rabbit hole, like pretty significantly. And then I got hacked, and all this other horrible crap happened, and. So things have been a little slow this year, but I mean, like this last week, I really made a lot of progress. Development's hard. It's like I think you really have to be addicted to it. I can't imagine anyone wanting to make something like a game, and like oh yeah, I'll try that. That sounds fun. Like I think you have to be willing to seriously torture yourself to a degree that I have felt in no other way, and. Some days I'm like, I wish I could be normal. I wish I could be normal. I wish I didn't want to do this, because I just want to go to work and eat and sleep and, have sex sometimes and be a normal human being.
But I think there's something about wanting and craving more, and having this layer of like magical reality over it.
Yeah, I think that's why people have religion. I think I want to make the religion.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
It feels like that's what I'm doing with this game.
It's L. Ron Hubbard-esque.
I don't want people to take it as a religion, but I'm like really worried if.
See, you need to get your boat so you can get people indentured to like your billion-year contracts. Get your slave labor.
I mean, it's almost tempting, but if I were to get into the nature of the game, it would be seriously messed up if I did that.
Well, I mean, Scientology is just on the block. You can go ask them.
Yeah,
get some advice. Be like, I'm starting a religion. Any advice?
Yeah, I mean, it's good because they're
that's
really
the best
open.
ARG ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that would be.
God, if I could get Scientology to sponsor it, that would be hilarious.
Hey, Scientology ARG. It's interesting because like looking at video games and seeing how some of them have tried to bend the reality. One of the most interesting examples.
I don't want to do that. I just feel like it's going to happen if it's successful.
One of the most interesting examples of like the reality bending nature before ARGs and ARXs even came on the scene was the game Star Tropics.
Oh, I don't think I ever played that, but I'm familiar with it. How did that work?
In the game, are you familiar with this, Ben?
No, I've never heard of it.
So it's an NES game that was known for... It's basically a kind of traditional RPG, but there was a point in the game where you're told you need to dip your map in water. And there's no option to do this in the game. There's no option to do it in the game. It's
Oh, you told me about this. I know what this is.
But basically, you take the instruction manual. Inside of it was a map, and you dipped it in water, and it would tell you what you had to do.
People were not ready for
really
that.
Cool.
It was this weird like moment of where the game was talking to you. And since then games have played around with it. Earthbound has played with it, clearly Toby Fox, and Undertale has been inspired by that.
Wait, what did Earthbound do? Because I don't remember.
You had to put your name in it and you pray, come on, Mr. Earthbound. Like you have to put your name in, and at the end you're the character that saves everyone. Oh,
but I mean that's you're just entering your name in.
You are, but you don't know what it's for. So at the end, when
I think Mother 3 is much more significant in that, in which in relation to entering the name of your mother.
Yeah,
which I won't spoil that for anyone who hasn't played, since it's. I mean, even though it's been around forever, it's like not the most accessible game to get.
And it hasn't
seriously
been officially localized. It's worth.
I mean, I hated the beginning of it. I was expecting Earthbound, and it was not Earthbound.
Yeah.
And I was very frustrated. And then once you get past like the main act break, like the first act break of the game, if you were to, I don't really remember what chapter it was. It may have been like chapter 2. or something like that, it just changes in a way that's like, oh crap, I get this. What's going on? They just needed to set it up. It is worth the wait.
So yeah, the other games like to play around with reality in that way, where it kind of likes to reference out things outside of the game, and like even games like Eternal Darkness or Metal Gear Solid with Psycho Mantis referencing save games on your memory card. So there's cool ways that games have referenced or tried to break into reality, but it's always interesting when things merge and play around with that whole space.
Yeah, I want to get back to Ben again, because I totally took us off on a sidetrack there.
No, that's cool. I've been talking about A Case of Distrust for like a year and a half. We should talk about other stuff. That's fine.
Well, yeah, okay. So now
fine by me.
Now that it's out, what is the lifespan of the game in terms of? You said you're done supporting it in terms of unless a major thing comes along, but you've let it sail. What is your life like now? It's got to be interesting going from crunch to nothing.
It should be nothing, right? That's what I thought it was going to be. That's what I thought, that's what AAA made me think when we launched a game where 300 people worked on it. On launch day, we just sat around and watched graphs and streamers play the game and things like that. It turns out I'm really busy now. I have to stay on top of Twitter. I have to send emails, do written interviews, do podcast interviews, do video interviews, go into studios and do interviews. Like there's just so many things to do when you're one person who made the game. You
can't just have an off day and be like, someone else go do it.
Right, exactly. Actually, yesterday was my first almost fully off day where I cleaned the house for my fiance as a Valentine's Day gift. And I promised myself an hour of computer time in the morning and then an hour of computer time just before she got home. And then I stopped after that. So that was actually really good. I think my eyes used that time to rest. I mean, not staring at a bright screen was really good for them.
So then how does that cycle start to wind down? So as press begins to wind down, I imagine at some point you're going to stop being as active on the social media. Yeah, how do you decide when to let that go and when to start working on something else? Because I assume you said, you're in this lifestyle now. You've been pulled in, you can't leave.
No, that is a really good question. And, starting to think about new things right now, I'm debating how to parcel my life, how to divide it into times where I should be active on social media and times where I shouldn't. And I think that's kind of how I'm going to do it is separate, okay, I'll do a bit of social media in the morning, a bit in the evening, and then the rest of the time should be mine to do, what I want to do with it. And I think for the first week, it's really hard to do that. I mean, everything is coming at you left, right, and center. But it's not slowing down yet, I would say. But I am seeing a light. I'm seeing, in a couple of weeks, oh, look, I have nothing scheduled now and nothing is coming up. All right, maybe that's good.
Just kind of organically winding down as opposed to you saying, like, I'm done at this moment.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I can't tell you if in a couple of weeks it will have fully winded down. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. If it keeps going, that's good for the game. If it doesn't, that maybe is good for my sanity. Yeah. So,
do you ever worry about like maybe becoming the next Phil Fish by accident? Or having an issue like that? Because not everyone... Phil Fish is a special case, but, I get it. There have been other examples. The Minecraft guy had an issue recently. No Man's Sky was a mess for some... I don't know. Tommy, you were kind of... Where did you fall on that one? Because I think I was more sympathetic than you.
I was not sympathetic. They oversold that game knowing they had they were overselling that. And the problem is, I don't know if it was deliberate, but when you clearly put someone that's in charge of sales who's going out and promoting a game and it doesn't deliver, you know full well that you're not delivering what you're saying. You have to know that.
I didn't get the impression that it wasn't what it was supposed to be.
It wasn't in a lot of ways. And the problem was all the promises they made about all this stuff was so crazy. There's no way that it would have been real. But the thing it delivered, if they hadn't overpromised it, it would have been decent. Mm-hmm. And I admire them for sticking to the support and making it what at least it is now. But I think the problem is don't oversell something.
Yeah.
They were promising such crazy shit that you're just like a real, kind of simulation of a universe. That's what they were promising. Yeah. That every bit of light was going to be really a planet or a star in the distance and not something simulated. It's like, what? A universe running in real time? Are you high? And they kept insisting on that.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you're going to talk bullshit and like sell something, you have to deliver it. Otherwise, don't promise it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are a whole lot of reasons I think you can end up having some sort of developer-related controversy. But, sometimes it's personality, sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with the game, and you get an argument. And, like, Ben, what do you... You don't seem like someone who's going to end up in one of those situations, but, I mean, like, is that
I hope not,
a thought?
Right? I will say, if you had talked to Phil Fish, 6 months before he decided to go out of social media forever, I bet you he would have told you that, oh no, I love the community, I think it's great. So
they can turn on a dime, it sounds like.
Exactly, I'm sure this stuff can turn around very, very quickly. Everyone's been really supportive so far, and I tend to take a very positive attitude, kind of in life, and especially on the internet. Of if I don't have something nice to say, if it's on the internet, if I'm just blasting it out through Twitter, then I won't say it. I mean, what's the point in adding more negativity to Twitter? That's such a ridiculous thing to me.
It's weird how just in life, being a messenger, even if you're the one repeating bad news, it's associated with you, or you're piling on. Right. I think you're incredibly smart for avoiding that whole morass.
Mm-hmm. It's tough. It's just tough to do anything on the internet these days, and I didn't realize how much things had changed since I was, blogging, I guess, prominently. You miss a year from of like paying close attention to what's going on, and it is just a completely different world. Things just don't work in the same way. I'm struggling to figure out a lot of stuff that I used to know how to do just fine. But
I think a lot of people on the internet genuinely appreciate when somebody is humble and honest. Mm-hmm. I think having a big ego on the internet is maybe dangerous, and I kind of, I'm saying that now, and I can see a situation where I could be construed as having a big ego. So it's not just that, but I think it's knowing when to back off an argument, and the right times to start an argument, and with whom. And if it's with your Twitter followers, then maybe I won't do that or something. But again, I don't know. You can have all these little rules for yourself, and then one day still end up in complete contrast with everybody who's following you on Twitter. So I just hope it doesn't happen to me. I
think being hyper vigilant is an unfortunate part of it, but I think it's the way you survive, because you're aware of what you're saying, the content, who you're engaging with, and the value of it. Because I think it's really easy, especially anyone who's a creator or a creative type. It's very easy for personality and being protective of, as we talked about, like your children or your stuff, to kind of be defensive and protective. And that's when you see, you should almost have like a filter where it's like, wait 5 minutes and like breathe. Is this still something you want to post? And I imagine the majority of the things that people say in haste that causes, explosion, they would be like, yeah, I probably shouldn't post this now.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think between I didn't go to college for art, but I did go to a really specialized high school for visual art. And between all the criticisms there and then my life kind of in the AAA game space, I think dealing with feedback is a really important skill that nobody has perfected, but I think you can train yourself to be better at it. And I think that's a really big thing of, if somebody says something, you're right, this is my baby. I've been working on this thing for 2.5 years. I've been slaving away at it. I just told you I was in a haze for 6 months. And if you say something just off the cuff, it's gonna make me upset. Mm-hmm. And it's important to not let your first reaction always be your response. If that makes any sense at all.
No, that's a perfect way of putting it.
I used to struggle with that a lot when I was getting used to people criticizing me on a daily basis multiple times in ways that seemed incredibly unfair. And I started using text expansion. I had one called comma asshole, was the snippet where I would just type that and it would be an automatic polite response to somebody who was being an asshole. That was like, I would love to engage with you and talk about this. I'm open to criticism, but you need to calm down and talk like a human being first. And it was such a relief, because as soon as I would see someone I get 2 sentences in and I'm like, I can't read the rest of this, or it's going to ruin my day. I would just type that out, send it, and I get a response back that was much more palatable. And I was shocked by how easy that was. I figured you send someone a canned message, it's not going to go well. But it's amazing. Like, if you shock people with, they're mean, and then you're nice, they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. So you can really diffuse tension easily in some situations.
Plus, it's perfect for you, Ben, because like the story and the mystery genre you're delving into has a lot of plot twists. So the idea of like someone's angry and expecting an angry response, and they get something polite back, that's a major meta plot twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've been lucky so far in that the reception for the game has actually been overwhelmingly positive. So
it's scary a little bit, isn't it?
It is a little scary because that maybe there's a cliff out there that I'm not seeing. We're all about to fall off of.
What's the biggest or most surprising reaction you've seen?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Well, so I guess I was mostly surprised by a Polygon review that came out, mostly because it came out a week or so after. I guess not a week. I guess it was a couple days ago. So it was like 5 days after the game came out. But coming from AAA, I expected all the reviews to drop on day one or day two of the release. And so a couple of days after the game had come out, I thought, oh, all right, well, all of the content that's ever going to come out for the game is out. This is what it is. Here are the early sales numbers. They're going to go down from here probably. And then a couple of days ago, this really glowing Polygon article came out. And no game that I've ever worked on has gotten such a high score on Polygon, and so that was
usually pretty critical.
Yeah, exactly. I just so the game got a 9 out of 10, and I didn't know that they gave 9s.
I don't know. Personally, I'd say like a 6 out of 10. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm now I'm waiting for the backlash from that. Right now, I'm waiting for all the commenters
to be like, really, this 9 out of 10? Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a whole nother problem. Is that someone hypes it up and they're like, this is not a 9 out of 10 to me. I think people have a really hard time differentiating opinion from, I guess, reality. Like, something's not bad because you didn't like it. You just didn't like it. And there's a difference.
Right. That's one of the big things I try to point out for, like, filmmaking. Because there are films that I hate, that I'm just not a fan of. But the thing...
Enter the Void is one of those films for me. That's one of the few that I will say is objectively problematic in a lot of ways. But there are people who like it.
And that's the thing, like being able to separate the entire process. Because for me, a lot of the times when I don't like a film, it's because of the script, and that's pretty much it. Or like one performance is really bad, or the direction is unusual. And so for me, I can separate, like the movie The Village, for example. I hate The Village, but only from the writing standpoint. I think the cast is phenomenal. The direction, like...
That's the Shyamalan movie?
Yeah. Okay. I think the score is great. The visuals are great. A lot of the film has beautiful, wonderful elements to it. I think the foundation of it is flawed. But would I give that film a 1 out of 10? No. I would give it actually like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 because so many of the elements work. It just... I can't hold it against it that the script is flawed. That, it's... whose fault is it when you bring actors in and they do the best they can with material? The score is haunting and beautiful. The visuals, the cinematography is wonderful. So being able to separate and say, like, objectively, looking back, even though I didn't care for the material, is this a 1 on every single scale? Or is it just certain elements, But it's hard to get people to relate to things that they don't like that way by saying, why did you not like it?
Have you seen all the talk going on lately about that movie Passengers? And I mean, the recent one with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt, I think. That's been fascinating because people have been re-editing it to rearrange the point of view to be from Jennifer Lawrence's point of view, and it is. I didn't see the movie, but I've seen like a synopsis kind of both versions, and it's fascinating.
I hope that becomes the next steamed hams.
I was just gonna drop that as well.
Yeah, the funny thing is though that you can. It seems like you could actually just re-edit Passengers as is and make it more interesting.
I agree. And I think some films do definitely benefit from being tweaked. Most products that have, and it's got to be interesting to look at a project with one person on it versus, a film that is the basically the makings of multiple people whose fingerprints are all over it. When a film is really, really good, or any product that has lots of hands on it, ends up being good, that's almost more rare than a single person project that's good because you have so many visions that all have to align.
Yeah.
It's not to say anything about effort too. That's one of the biggest things I've learned is it takes just as much effort to make something shitty as it does good.
Yeah.
A film, a game, any AAA title that's shitty, you have a lot of hands that have been working on that. It may have been with bad direction,
years.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's fair to say you don't like something, but I prefer when people realize all the work that went into it. Like you're taking a giant dump when you say this is terrible. You're taking a giant dump on something someone spent years on.
And
usually
it's got to have to me, something
that's sad.
Yeah, something that's truly terrible has to have a lot of things going against it. It's got to have, be almost more morally reprehensible.
Yeah, it's got to be like malicious in the nature it was created.
A deliberate,
like it was designed to mess people up or something.
A deliberate cash grab that has no, artistic or creative merit.
Like the Emoji Movie.
Yeah, that I would say. Even then, people worked on it, but I would say...
I haven't seen it, so I don't want to...
No, it's bad.
But it sounds like that's what that is, because it's just a big ad.
It's morally bankrupt.
But even that, the people who put that movie together, the people in the boardroom who made that happen, those are the guys you're really mad at.
Exactly.
The animator who spent
a
year in front of a computer tweaking, the poop emoji to look just right when you did it has, what can he do? Like, the concept from the beginning was so bad.
Yeah, and
obviously this isn't going to be a good movie.
I'm sure they knew from the sketch. I mean, I get it. They're making a paycheck, and I understand, like, they're not quote-unquote artists, and I feel bad for anyone in that position, because, there are jobs I've taken that I'm not happy with, that I'm doing simply for a paycheck, but I get it. So for me, when I criticize something, even then, like, I try to make sure it's from a vantage point of being understanding and qualifying that I didn't enjoy it, but they're even pointing out elements I did. Because to me, even making something, it's very, very easy to criticize those who make bad things. But hell, there are more people who don't make stuff that just talk about it. Yeah, making anything is really hard, especially what you did, Ben. Like, making a one-man show, game is hard, as hearing and reading your devlog has shown. And so when anyone can make anything, even if it comes out less than desirable, I have to give that person at least some level of credit for putting... their thoughts and words into action.
Yeah, it is a scary thing to do, especially when you have to actually show it to people. I don't get afraid about a lot of stuff these days, but I was like, I almost didn't do the playtest a couple weeks ago because I was like, this is going to be terrible. Everyone's going to hate it, because I knew it was going to be a problem. I was just shocked that anyone was even able to do it. But boy, is it gratifying when you're wrong about that sort of thing.
Yeah. That was when I first met Tommy at E3. He'd come by after, streams of media people had come by, and we talked about it for a second. I understood that, oh, you're another creator. This is the first time I'm showing this to anybody. I'm so terrified right now. And we just had a moment there of, holy crap, this is crazy.
It is a weird journey to go through of anything, because I think the biggest thing it points out is, whether even it's good or not, but the idea of, I spent all this time doing something, this is validating time that I'm not getting back. I'm going to die at some point. I'm going to be, hopefully in the final moments of my death, looking back at the time I've spent on this, and will that have been worth it? Yeah. That's a really kind of scary thing to think about.
I think having the obsession of making a game is what makes it possible to do it and feel and finally just go through with it and put it out there. And if it doesn't work, or it does work, or whatever, you're going to get to the end of it. You're going to give everything you have to get it out there at that point, if it really means that much to you, because and I think that's what keeps me going anyway, because I like, most of the time I'll say, this is insane. With a certain project, I'll be like, this is too weird, or like, I don't know if this will work. I'll kind of see what happens. And most of the time those don't go anywhere, but when I really care about it, I will push. Even when I'm down, I'm like, I don't want to do it. I should just stop. I'll wake up the next morning with new energy and just have to go for it. So it's a crazy process. I feel like we just had a therapy hour.
Yeah.
So exactly. This was really nice. But we actually do have to wrap up for the day.
I have a final question.
You go for it. Yeah. Hopefully my phone battery will last long enough. We won't lose Ben.
So two quick things. They're all tied together. So you've basically, ending-wise, not to spoil anything, but you do leave it on a bit of things could continue on. And the idea of, obviously, you want to do other things with your life now and create other games, take a well-deserved break. The question I felt when I was playing this was, this feels like a game, like the first chapter of something. You've created a world, you've created a character, and honestly, it feels like a platform for other stories to be told in this world with this character. Is that something you had in mind of being able to do things in the future like this? Do you want to revisit this world, or is it just too early to tell?
Yeah, so I spent, I don't know, a good year just doing pre-work before even making the game. Part of that was doing engine research and stuff, but most of it was doing research on I'm looking at this stack of books underneath my webcam, research on the Barbary Coast, on the NYPD Police Department, on all these things to understand the era of the 1920s and where people had come from and where society was going. And then it was a bunch of time spent on each and every character, meticulously researching what was happening at the time, what were they doing, how did they grow up. Every character I have, I know the date that they were born. I know the important things that happen in their lives. I know the important things that happen in society, like the 1906 earthquake or the Great War, like World War I, and how that affected them while they were growing up. And so to take all of that and throw it away would feel kind of wasteful. And in my head, I definitely have an episodic arc for where I could see, maybe a first season of games or something going. I think that could be really cool. From a creative standpoint, I do want to take a step away, I think, for a little bit. And what does a little bit mean? Like, does that mean, 6 months? Does that mean I do a fully different project and then come back to this? I'm not quite sure yet, but it's a world that I really love. I mean, just in general, the 1920s are something that I really think is cool. And they're characters that I've put so much love into that I would want to come back and visit this at some point. Absolutely.
I'm happy to hear that, because the two reactions I had afterwards were I was mad when the game ended, because I'm like, oh, that's it. I want to keep going. And I wanted to see just the level of detail, because I most of the time, until the very end when I just was like, come on, I want to finish, I want to solve this. Most of the time I would talk to the cab drivers, and I loved the, in those transition moments, getting this background. And it is so clear you spent so much time researching this and getting this data right. And when I watch the show The Crown, I feel the same way, where it's, even though it's a fictional series, you do feel like a lot of history has been imbued in these scenes and these stories. And I felt
really
the same
happy
way.
to hear you say that.
And reading just the descriptions of each building, and how the characters spoke and their diction, it felt like this world was living and breathing, and I wanted more of it. So I'm excited to hear that at some point you might revisit it, and applaud you for the level of research, because that detail is often missed, but it's very clear that you spend a lot of time. So I tip my hat to you for getting so deeply in to the writing and the characters. And even though you might not have all the characters' info on the screen, the way they speak in the details and even their apartments or their houses or the clubs do show through. So I applaud you for that. And I think the praise you're getting is well deserved.
If you guys want to
thank you so much.
If you guys want to go check out the game, it's at caseofdistrust.com. We've talked about it a few times, so hopefully you've been bookmarking it, but if not, go check it out. Ben, is your website wanderingben.com? Is that right?
TheWanderingBen.com.
The Wandering.
Not a Wandering Ben, he's the.
Yes, you are the only one.
The only one.
Sense. Okay, so we'll have all the links in the show notes for those of you who are don't have a web browser handy right now, or are not watching the links on your screen and with this video on mute. That doesn't make sense. The links are in the show notes. 5x5.tv/supercharged/187. You'll be able to get them there, plus the other games we talked about. Ben, thanks for joining us.
And when you play, make sure you click on everything as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Make sure you break it in all of the ways, please.
Yes. But thank you, Ben, for joining us again. And everybody, thank you for listening. And we'll be back at you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Supercharged. If you'd like to send in a comment or a question, you can do so on awkward.email. You just go on your web browser to awkward.email. It's actually a website. And you can call or text 509-AWKWARD instead if you'd like to just skip all of that and do it from your phone. Also, if you'd like to check out some of our other shows, we've got a lot of great shows now, and we're having more every day, or, eventually. You can do that on awkwardhuman.com/podcast. Go check it out. We've got a lot of good stuff, and we hope that you'll be listening every week. Thanks.